Anybody that's got a classic Hymer will recognise this baby. That is the bathroom light. Now what I'm planning to do is convert that to LED as well. There's 4 10-watt bulbs, that takes 40 watts in there, so it uses quite a lot of power. So what I want to do is put a couple of strips LED in the main light, and I want to put some strips underneath here, sort of concealed lighting right under and right round. And even doing that with the 2 strips and having that strip all the way round, which will give us a lot more light and a lot better distribution of light, it will use far less power. I think the LEDs are a couple of watts per metre, so we're going to use 2 meters in here, so it's probably about 5 watts it's going to use. So basically the equivalent, or not even, the equivalent of one of those bulbs in there. Half of the power of one of those bulbs will be used. So we're going to be using a fraction of the power, and we should get a lot more light and a better distribution of light. So I'm going to use waterproof LED strips in here. So the first thing you want to do with this light is undo the screws. I've taken the bottom one out, which is just there, and the top one. And there we go. And then just be very careful with this. I don't know if they can be replaced, and then you should have your 4 bulbs there. As you can see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 10-watt bulbs that are equivalent to 40 watts at 12 volts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this unit out, then I'm just going to put strips of LED along this. I'm just going to glue them on and take the bulbs out, and I think that's the best way to convert this light so that we can still use the whole thing and still keep that 1980s look in the camper van bathroom, because it's such a fantastic look. It's not been off for a while, it's a bit manky, so I'm going to unscrew that and we'll get into it really. Bigger screwdriver required for this job. These are pretty well in. Okay, obviously I'm taking this light out. It's still on. I'm doing this so you can see what's going on, hopefully. But you really want it switched off and the batteries isolated. That would be perfect. I'm comfortable doing what I'm doing. I've worked on 12 volt systems before. It's not as simple as I thought it was going to be. I don't know if you can see in that. You can see that. Okay. So, I don't know if you can see that, but it looks like there's a cable coming in and a cable going out. So we need to still keep that junction intact at the back of this light. We should be able to connect up quite easily to this. Right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the power so that we can disconnect that junction, and then once we've disconnected that we can work on the actual light. Down to the driver's bit. And this key down here is the disc. So you just turn that and it sort of comes off, but you can kind of leave that in position. That isolates the whole van's power from the batteries, so the lights should be off now, and they are indeed. I'm just taking these out to release these 2 cables. You can see they're soldered together. The power must continue on to another switch, another part of the van. So we want to keep that the same. It was in that terminal block tucked away in there, which is very tricky to get to, but Once we release this, this will give us access to the whole light then. So get them off. Try not to lose any screws. There we go. That's it. You got the light. With these wires disconnected, now you can put the power back on and check the continuity and see which is the positive and which is negative, the brown or the blue. Now I would always say the brown is the positive and the blue is the negative, but it's worth double checking every time because it's not always the case. You always double check. Okay, so we've got the bottom of the switch, we've got the bottom of the light where the switch is. We've got the four lights, and this is the top. You can see this is a wee bit. We can glue all that back on, but what we've got here is the electrical system. Now we're going to modify this a wee bit in that we don't want to use any of this actually, but I'm just going to leave that in there because there's no point in taking it out. It's just I'm just going to leave the bulbs in, not the bulbs but the bulb holders. I'm going to leave that in. So you can see that we've got live and neutral coming in there, positive and negative. Now what's happening is that positive's running down through the switch and it's coming back up as a blue wire. So this blue one here is the live, so that's a live feed through the switch. That's the one you want to connect onto your LEDs, because this will then, that switch will then control your LED lights, and that's what you're wanting really. What we can do, just the way this is set up, is we can connect a cable onto this cable, which is the other side of the switch. That will give us a live, and then we want to connect the other cable of our LEDs into that. That will give us the negative. So you got a positive, negative, but the positive, it gets confusing because it's a 2-core cable and they're 2 different colours, but the blue one here is actually positive. It goes in brown, it's positive, and come back as blue, and that's still positive. So we want to connect the LED onto that. Once we connect onto that, that's a positive, and then this is a negative, and then we should be laughing. When we cut this, we then cut the power to all the other lights, so these bulbs won't work anymore once this is cut. But what we'll do is we will cut off this one completely, just to make doubly sure that there's no power getting to those other lights. And then if you ever wanted to reconnect it up, you can. Don't know why you would, right enough, but I'm going to run the strips up each side. So this is the strip that I'm using. It just comes as a plain 5-metre roll, and you just measure out how much you need. So I'm going to run 2, one up one side, one up the other side. And you can see that bit there on the strip is where you cut it. So you just cut it there. It's important that you cut it at the points that are highlighted where you can cut it, because you'll get good connections there and you won't break the circuit in any way. So just cut the other length. So these LED strips are coated in rubber to make them water resistant, so you need to take a bit of the rubber off to reach the copper pads that you can solder wires onto. So you need to just cut the rubber off. I'm using snips here, but sometimes it's easier to use a Stanley knife blade. You can just cut it off. I'm using the snips to get the worst of it off, and then I'll use a Stanley knife to clean it up. Taking off the rubber seal that's on it so that we can actually access the copper. The copper's protected by the rubber seal, and you need to take that wee bit off. What I've done there is just take off the rubber, and you can see that the copper's exposed. And what that does, it allows us to solder on some cables, because I'm going to solder these connections. Soldering connections will be much better than using the wee clips that you get with these LED strips. So basically you just want to measure your strips out to get the correct length for putting down the light. I'm going to put 2 LED strips into this light, one either side of the bulb holders. So I'm going to cut the first cable in the line of the bulb holders, and I'm going to use that to power the LED strips. So in the Hymers, certainly the old ones, the wiring is counterintuitive to us here in the UK, because the blue's the live or the positive, and the black is the brown is the negative. So I'm going to use a bit of heat shrink as well to protect these joins and make sure they don't short on anything once we tuck them all away and put the light back together again. So this will help keep it all insulated, and it also helps to support the solder joints once they're completed. So I'm just getting myself some extra cable that I'm going to attach to the LED strip and eventually to the light. It's important that you wire these up the correct way round, because LED strips won't work if they're in the wrong polarity. So the positive has to go to the positive, and it is actually marked up on the LED strips which pad is positive and which pad is negative. So I'm just preparing the cables. I'm extending the existing cables so that I can use those extensions to connect to the LEDs. So I'm going to solder them, and I'm going to use a small bit of heat shrink to protect the joint. So that's the ends of the LEDs prepared for action. You may want to solder on something that won't transfer the heat onto your table, or something that's not flammable like a metal box. So I'm just using this to hold it in position. You can see what I'm going to do is tin the copper, so you just want a wee bit of solder, put it on there quickly. What happens is the solder should stick to the copper, and that makes it a lot easier for connecting your wires, because what you want to do also is tin the end of the wires, and when they're both tinned, it's just a matter of melting them together, and it gives you a nice, it's much easier to join them. Again, you just want to tin those wires, so it's just a bit of solder on. While it's smoking, you want to have them touching, so that the flux helps the solder run into the copper. So make sure you're connecting your cable to the correct polarity, so you know which colour's which. So I'm just putting them on together. This is quite tricky, this manoeuvre. So I'm just putting them onto one another and melting them, and that's it. So basically you don't need much more solder, because the tinning of the LED strip and the cable is usually enough to hold it in position. Just inspect your solder joint once you're finished. It should be nice and shiny and no wires straying across to the other pad or anything. So again, you're just laying it next to one another as best you can. The two of them are tinned. Bring your heat, press, and it just melts, and that's it. There you go. Easy as that. And then we'll put a wee bit of heat shrink over that join. And that will just help everything stay in place. And it gives you a nice neat finish that should be able to endure moisture and vibration. So I'm just going to tin the other end of those wires. Just get something to hold them in position, and then just tin them up. There you go. See that solder just running into the copper. You don't need too much solder. So now I'm connecting, I'm just tinning this. So what I'm doing here is joining these wires. Don't forget to put the heat shrink on like I did there. And then you can join the wires just using a wee bit of solder on your solder iron and the tinning. Now I've got the colours the opposite way round. That's purely for me. That is a positive cable, so it goes from the positive down to the switch and back up again, and that is a positive wire, which I've coloured brown, which is actually the opposite way from the wire in the Hymer. That's purely for me, because I found that the opposite way round I was just getting so confused trying to put this together, so I made it sort of the standard wiring colours within this switch, just so I could get the job done. So it is a bit confusing, but from where I was sitting it wasn't, but from you watching that might be confusing, but I have got it the opposite way round from the Hymer colours. That is very much easier for me to deal with. So just quickly heat shrink that joint onto the LED strip. won't work. So positive and positive. So hold it in position.
I was planning to speak to Elspeth today as well, because I heard she was like that, you know, you don't want to disagree with her. She's like, I was saying, you know, because they can manipulate me and all that, and I mean, it isn't like I do anything that makes them. Can I talk while you're doing that?
Yeah.
That makes me go, ow, I don't do that. Apart from when they was pulling it in and out a wee bit, it just gets a bit where it gets sore. It's not even sore, it's just, you go, in case it is sore. 9 times out of 10 it isn't it?
Yeah,
you know?
You're just prepping for it. Oh, shit.
Listen, I like you do.
No, it's alright. No, it's alright. Fire in, honey. And get it on
It was
the
just then, and then she's like, oh, I know, but sometimes, I mean, it's really sore, the pressure. I mean, I just think, oh my God, it's really painful, the pressure they put on it, you know, the way they really. Either he was just being very gentle with me, or pressure to her.
And she's feeling it.
It's because.
So before you take the backing off the LED, just make sure everything's going to fit and that it's all going to work before you expose the sticky part of the LEDs. And take the backing off. This is where it gets tricky. Just slowly work your way up, pressing it on so you don't get any wrinkles in it at all. Just repeat the process. Once you're happy, press it down. And that's it, on for good. What you can see here is the cables wired up. So I've got the cable just going straight into the connector block for the LEDs, and the other cable is to power the other LEDs, which is into the connector block but goes straight down to the bottom of the light, and that will power the other LEDs that I want to go underneath the mirrors. So this is the final part of the lighting setup. What I've got here is
And of course another 50
two LEDs strips, one for one side of the mirrors, one for the other side. And so what I have to do is I have to put cables onto both ends of the strips,
And for no purpose
and
whatsoever.
also I have to put a power cable onto one of them, so they'll all be connected together. So it'll be positive, positive, negative, negative, and both of them will be going onto a positive and negative that's powered from the switch. Sounds a bit complicated, but actually it's quite simple. So you just want to power up both these LEDs. Because they're going in opposite directions, I need to split them. So you could avoid that by having an LED running up and then back. So but I didn't want to double up my lights underneath the units. There's not much space for that, so that's why I went with this method. It's a wee bit more involved in soldering, but eventually it's a wee bit more involved with regards to soldering, but it saves you from running twice the amount of LEDs in one of the sides of the bathroom. So how I ended up doing this was I soldered these tails onto the 2 LED strips. Then I just used a connector block to connect them both together, and then inserted the power into one side of the connector block. That was by far the easiest option, and that was the best way to go. I haven't got that on film, unfortunately, but you can get an idea from this. You just use the heat shrink over everything, even your terminal block. If you've got big enough heat shrink, to shrink over the whole lot once it's all connected, and you'll have a pretty secure junction there, and you shouldn't have any problems with it. Okay, so long last, just going to test this. Woo! Right, as you can see, we've managed to do the 2 strips. The 4 bulbs have been taken out, so it's just a matter of putting the cover on here, and that should be it finished. Under here I've put in some lights. Now I've just done a wee junction in the back here and run a cable, you can see it there, through, and then got the main junction here for these lights coming off. So the only problem with these lights is, if you've ever fitted them, is that bloody stuff is useless. The sticky stuff is absolutely useless. So I need to put a glue on to hold it up. So what I'm going to use is just some silicone. All you do is put a little bit of silicone across every so often, and it just helps hold it in position. You can take this off and re-stick it down with other glues, but I find this just works just as well, and it's pretty quick to do. I have got white silicone, I'm going to just use that. You could use clear or whatever, it's just an ordinary sanitary silicone for in the house. I don't see any problem with using that. It should last. It's not for sealing or anything, it's just basically holding those lights in position. And I'll do the same underneath. I'll just put a wee bead across. If you can see that, I'll just come across like that. Obviously you don't want to go over the LEDs, you go in between them. Probably every 2 or 3 inches it needs to be held up, because as I say, that stuff is rubbish, and I've tried in the past a lot of different methods to hold that up, and this one seems to work well for me, so I will stick with it. Okay, so I'll do this and let you see what I'm thinking. But this will just keep it where it's supposed to be. If anybody's got a better idea of how to put these things on, I am all ears, because they are a pain in the neck, especially if you're if they're underneath something like here. It's a pain in the neck putting these things on. So I'm going to just go in quite a lot Not there for that big junction. And then I'm going to just squeeze that in. There we go. Trouble with using silicone is it's got to be held in position until it dries. Clean a bit of this hanging down. Take the beardy bits off. Okay. I'm just getting rid of any peaks. Okay, I'm going to put the classy finish on. There it is. Bit up there. Don't tighten that up too much. I don't want to break it. That's it. And then on. All in a day's work, and that only took me about 6 hours. Here we are about almost 2 years later, and I've had these lights in for 2 years now, and they work great. It gives you a nice light through the whole bathroom there. The toilet and shower. They work great, and obviously being waterproof they can take moisture and stuff, so they're absolutely fine. And underneath you can see my big scary junction there, but you can't really see that from above. You can see that sort of popped a wee bit, but you can't really see it either when you're standing up. You can see that's sort of popped a wee bit, but generally it stayed in position. Still got nice bits of silicone under here that I missed to clean up. But you don't see it at all unless you're lying on the bathroom floor, so it's absolutely fine. It looks great. The main thing is it gives you a right nice light at night, and it's using less power than the original 4 bulbs would have been taking. The actual wattage is about 5 watts a metre. It's probably using about 10 watts this. It's like 2 half metres and a same in there, so probably 2 metres and it's about 5 watts per metre, so it's using about 10 watts altogether, which is pretty low to be honest, so it's sort of equivalent to one of those bulbs, the originals. This is a great upgrade to do. It makes a big difference.